our mishandling of animals. I mean, we've got wild birds that have low pathogenic avian influenza. They fly down the migratory flyways, the Pacific Flyway, the Atlantic Flyway, the Mississippi Flyway, and they can infect other birds. But what makes them, what makes these operations so vulnerable is we've got so many of them clustered in these hen houses. You might have 200,000, 300,000, 360,000 animals. That virus gets in there. It's got a 90 to 100% mortality rate for the birds infected. But even if they haven't been infected, just yet, if some are infected, then the USDA and other state agricultural authorities depopulate, as they say, the entire house. 68 chickens and turkeys have been killed. We've got about one laying hen in the United States for every person. So the average laying hen is now producing like 280 eggs a year. They're ovulating almost every day. You think about 365 days a year, they're producing 280 eggs, which is just way different than what they used to. Their ovulation period historically wasn't even close to that. So the problem is, let me just say on the numbers, 330 million Americans, we've got about 330 million laying hens because we're consuming, each of us, if you're eating eggs, about 280 eggs a year. Some of that is a whole egg, and other eggs are built into packaged products and packaged goods. And these birds, historically, were jammed into cages called battery cages, 6 to 8 birds in a cage. The cage is about the size of a large microwave. The birds are shoulder to shoulder. They can't even extend their wings, even 2 inches. That was the norm in the industry. But again, we're treating animals like they are biological machines, like they're an egg-laying machine. They can survive, in many cases, but that's not really a life worth living. All that we did in California was Prop 2 in 2008, and then Prop 12 in 2018, was to say that the animals had some space to extend their wings and move around. I mean, a movement standard is not a radical standard. It's the least we can do for animals conscripted into food production to serve human beings. I mean, any farmer who is worth his or her salt gives animals an opportunity to move. But things got so out of whack that this became the norm in the industry, and we began to change that. Now, animals are safer when it comes to viral threats when they're spread out more. What's the most dangerous circumstance for human beings? Get us all in an elevator and have somebody sneezing and coughing and spreading the virus. We've got it in a second. The same thing in a crowded restaurant or a bar. You extend, the distance between us. That was the whole purpose of our social distancing strategy. We have the exact opposite circumstance on a factory farm. That's what makes them uniquely vulnerable. I will tell you, George, this avian influenza situation is a disaster for animals. It's a terrible threat. It's a threat on factory farms. The cock-fighting birds are also a threat because they're moved in global commerce. We've got a real problem that is already occurring, but it's brewing to be an even more significant problem. Because if this avian influenza jumps the species barrier, becomes more transmissible to human beings, we've got something that's going to make SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19, look like tiddlywinks. The human, mortality rate for SARS-CoV-2 is 0.5% to a high of 2%. In Asia, this avian influenza has jumped the species barrier in limited cases. The case rate, there are 850 people who died. The mortality rate for the cases detected is 53%, compared to 0.5% for SARS-CoV-2. This will end civilization as we know it. It becomes more transmissible if 1 out of every 2 people become afflicted with a virus that can kill half of the people infected.
So this is another example of where being kinder to chickens makes sense for humans, for our health, for the health of our planet, for the survival of civilization, and for just a little bit better, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what we have is just the most miserly situation you can imagine. I mean, the hens, when we did Prop 2 in California, 67 square inches of space. Think of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, just your normal standard, piece of paper to a printer or a copy machine. That's 93 square inches, 8.5 by 11. The space that the hen has is 2/3 the size of a page that you put in your printer. For the 12 to 18 months that they're alive, and the compounding factor is you've got 6 or 7 other chickens inside this cage that's the size of a microwave or a bread box. That is an insane animal housing and husbandry standard. How did things get so bad? How did we get so miserly? How did we get so non-creative that that's the best we could do for production? These are animals. They're alive. They have legs and wings to move. They have physical and physiological needs. How can those be met when they're immobilized as a basic husbandry strategy? George, this case is now before the United States Supreme Court. The pork producers, the National Pork Producers Council, sued the state of California over the pig standard because the terrible system for sows in the pig industry is that they're jammed alone in a 2 foot by 7 foot cage. Now these are 350, even 450 pound animals, and they are in a cage that allows them to take one small step forward, one small step back. They can't even turn around. And the pork producers say, well, if we have this standard, because California is now requiring that the pork sold in the state, whether the pork production occurs in California or in Iowa or North Carolina, which are the big pig producing states, it's going to destroy the industry. To give the animals a little opportunity to move. This is a fairly modern circumstance. We didn't do this to animals before 1960. Animals were outside. They were in pastures. They were in settings where they could, move around. They could feel some sunlight on their backs and soil beneath their feet. This is a 60-year failed experiment of factory farming that has been devastating from an animal welfare perspective, from a disease transmission perspective, consequently an overuse of antibiotics perspective, where we're now generating antibiotic-resistant bacteria because we're overusing antibiotics on the factory farms. The massive waste loads that come from these factory farms with pigs by the thousands or chickens by the thousands aggregated in a single place. We have 330 million people in our United States, as I mentioned a couple of times. I mean, all of our waste is treated. Think of 10 billion animals and untreated waste from all of those animals. So this is a much larger problem, and George, it's something that you and I have talked about before. It's not just about animal welfare. It's about the health of our water. It's the cleanliness of our air. It's being protected from antibiotic-resistant bacteria and viruses that can mix on factory farms. These are big problems for our society, and to give the animals a little bit of space and for the industry to say, oh, that's too much, just shows how warped some of the thinking is.
Occasionally I'll see you're on the freeway and stuck in the traffic jam, and there's a truck next to you that's packed with pigs, and they're looking at, you see their eyes, they're the same kind of look they have that you're describing for those horses on their way to slaughter. They know something's up. I'd like to think that 100 years from now we'll look back at this as an absolutely barbaric time when we've got bacon mania, extra bacon on this and extra bacon on that, as if it all comes from bacon trees. And pigs are like dogs. They're smart, they're funny, they have senses of humor, they're social. They wallow around in mud, sure, but they're really amazing and smart animals. And we just, what we put pigs through is absolutely unbelievable.
We're so disconnected from it, George. You get that glimpse when you're on the highway with those pigs going to slaughter. That'll be the last time you or anybody else sees those pigs except on a plate. And we're removed from the factory farms. We don't go into them. We don't see them. You can't see them. We have ag gag laws in this prohibitions on photography and video at these places. This is part of the problem with our relationship with animals. We're so removed from the veins of abuse. We don't see the puppy mills and how those dogs get into pet stores or they're sold on the internet. We don't see the pig factory farms and what happens to those animals. We don't see the horse slaughter kill buyers, and we don't see what they do at auctions. We don't see what happens at the pasture outside of the horse slaughter plant in Alberta where it's minus 30 degrees. We're detached from this, and this is really the goal of Animal Wellness Action and the Center for the Humane Economy and other animal welfare groups is to try to present a rational case for a better way of handling animals in our society. Most people profess a love for animals. Most people do possess that love for animals. I wrote a book called The Bond that talks about the age-old connection between humans and animals. So we do love animals. We have anti-cruelty standards and statutes in this country. The problem is most people are not aware of these problems, and we're not logically applying anti-cruelty principles in settings like factory farms and animal testing labs and horse slaughter pastures. That's what we need to correct. That's the business and the work that we are in every day, trying to correct these problems.
I want to get one more topic in before we go to a break in about 3.5 minutes or so, and that's wolves. Wolves were reintroduced in a couple of places, Yellowstone, and over the objections of ranchers, of course, and ranchers and others who hate wolves will use all kinds of tricks to lure them out of Yellowstone and just shoot them down. And there are these state-approved hunts that happen in a couple of states, and the level of vitriol about wolves is astonishing when you consider the results. The reintroduction of wolves, the dramatic, widespread, positive effects that it had on the environment, on other species. It was like a miracle. Am I correct?
Well, it was. I mean, wolves were removed through a plan executed by, trophy hunters and ranchers and our United States government. Our Wildlife Services, which is a euphemistic sounding name of an agency that really is built around killing of our wildlife in the West to make things ostensibly better for ranchers and timberers and others. And they were moved from the core habitats, even the protected areas like Yellowstone, the first national park in the United States. They were moved. So we tried to restore wolves and to make amends for what we did by extricating them from that environment. And wolves, had this remarkable success in terms of reproduction and formation of packs. And there are documentaries and so much science about how their predation on elk and deer and bison has improved the health of ecosystems. Also, their predation on beavers has improved the streams and so many aspects of the ecosystem. And as you said, George, they logically go outside of the park because you have national forests that are so it doesn't look any different for the wolves. They go and then trophy hunters and trappers kill them, including the governor of Montana, who trapped a wolf on a private ranch right outside of Yellowstone with a leg hold trap when he was the sitting governor. Why would someone kill a wolf? You don't eat the wolf. These are animals that have this beneficial impact. They are the forebears of the domesticated dogs in our homes and in our lives that we love and cherish and would defend if someone were assaulting them. And I'm just mystified by the vitriol and hatred that a small number of people have for wolves. But you can bet that we're meeting that vitriol with our own vigorous defense of wolves wherever we can.
We're talking with Wayne Pacelli of Animal Wellness Action and the Center for Humane Economy. There's so much ground I still want to cover, but we're going to open up the phone lines. I know some of you are going to want to chime in on this. And when we come back, I'd like to get a sense of whether free-range chicken eggs, whether that means anything. I know it's got to be at least a little bit better, but when we pay for a dozen eggs, and it's twice as much as a normal dozen, whether when they say free range, whether that really means anything, because I know people can make a difference with what they buy and how they spend their money
have I hope that she doesn't they can ride the bike and slow. You know yourself because it's time. Just no time. Your children that understand. It's slowly go by. And something them on your dreams. The one they pick, the one you know by. Don't you ever
I'm Mark Warner in the KFI 24-hour newsroom. The major winter storm that's moved through Southern California has dumped a staggering 81 inches of snow at the Mountain High Resort in the San Gabriel Mountains and up to 64 inches of snow at Snow Valley in the San Bernardino Mountains. Yosemite National Park's closed until Wednesday because of severe winter conditions. National Weather Service officials say a winter storm is expected to hit the region with heavy snow the next several days. Only staff members are allowed to enter the park through El Portal Road. A car has slammed into a Girl Scout cookie stand in Northern California, hurting 2 Girl Scouts. The CHP says it happened yesterday in the city of Granite Bay. A woman was also hurt in the crash. The driver of the car was allegedly drunk and arrested. Southland weather from KFI. The rain returns tonight and stays with us until Wednesday night. We'll see lows in the mid-40s overnight, mid-30s in the Inland Empire, 30s and a chance of snow in the Antelope Valley. Tomorrow, highs in the mid-50s along with the rain, and 40s with a bit of snow in the AV. We lead local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Mark Ronner. In Cerritos, this is on the 91 westbound after 605. We have a crash involving an overturned car. It's out of lanes and on the right shoulder, but watch for some looky-little lanes as you approach. Cascade. This is on the 5 northbound right before Templin Highway. Strong down car taking up the right lane there. Your drive is bunching up as you approach. Hollywood, we have good news. Earlier crash on the 101 southbound at Highland Avenue has been cleared for lanes. Your drive's recovering. KFI of the Sky helps get you there faster. I'm Brian there.
At LA Fitness, there's no end to what you can try with your 3-day free pass. Sign up today at startlafitness.com. From cycling to swimming, running to rowing, battle ropes to box jump. When you join LA Fitness, it opens the door to premium amenities like Olympic lifting platforms, basketball courts, pools, and more. Start a new day resolution. So get your pass today. Come into one of our hundreds of locations or join online with our latest offers. Grab your free 3-day pass. StartLAFitness.com. That's StartLAFitness.com.
It's easier to learn a new language with Rosetta Stone. No matter what's inspiring you to learn a language, travel, work, family, or just for fun, the Rosetta Stone app makes it easy to get started and stay motivated to reach your goals. Right now, get a lifetime unlimited subscription with forever access to all 25 of Rosetta Stone's languages for 40% off. Visit rosettastone.com today and save 40%. Rosetta Stone, how language is learned.
I never chose to become a gambling addict, but what I did choose was to get help from a professional counselor.
For no-cost gambling addiction counseling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text SPORT to 53342. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
This Black History Month and every day, UNCF uplifts the history and culture of the African American community and salutes the past, present, and future of excellence and high achievement at historical Black colleges and universities. Over the years, HBCUs have consistently graduated outstanding Americans of all backgrounds who have made great contributions to the prosperity and stability of our nation. This month, make a gift to support the new generation of Black activists, leaders, artists, business owners, and educators. Go to uncf.org/donate today because a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
KFI, AM 640, more stimulating talk. We once got paid in Burger King coupons. No, place our payment. It was like a little tip. Because you were saying, oh man, we don't make any money and we ought to get a raise. So he gave us a couple. So I tried to see some kind of savings.
To talk to George Knapp, call the wildcard line at 818-501-4109. The first-time caller line is 818-501-4721. To talk toll-free from east of the Rockies, call 800-825-5033. From west of the Rockies, toll-free, call 800-618-8255. This is Coast to Coast AM with George Knapp.
Noted vegetarian Paul McCartney wrote that song, and he and his bandmates, the Beatles, recorded it, Mother Nature's Son. We're talking with Wayne Pacelli of Animal Wellness Action about a range of animal welfare issues. We're going to the phones in just a moment here and cover as much ground as we still can. We could go on for a long time. There are a lot of issues out there. The bottom line, though, is that what you eat, what you buy, what you spend your money on is the way to make a difference. It makes all the difference in the world, is making informed decisions about what you're willing to tolerate or what you're willing to support. We'll be right back with more Coast to Coast AM. Marvelous Entertainment and author Marvin Sunderland have released the newest in-action adventure science fiction that specifically deals with the question, are we alone in the universe? This action-packed drama includes a set-level masterpiece, comic books, video games, and movies of Sergeant Waggett's journeys across the universe. Get 20% off the entire 7-novel series and all future graphic novels. Enter coupon code Coast to Coast, all lowercase, on marvelous.com. That's MARVALEOUS.com.
Tired of overpaying for your cell phone? Switch to Consumer Cellular and save up to half on your wireless plan. Their award-winning 100% U.S.-based customer support team makes switching easy. Plus, you can keep your phone and number with no contract or activation fees. They offer unlimited talk and text with a flexible data plan starting at just $20 a month. You can easily add your family and friends to your plan for just $15 a month per line. Never worry about dropped calls. Consumer Cellular has the exact same coverage as the major carriers to over 99% of the nation. This is all backed by their 100% risk-free guarantee, doing the millions of others who have switched. Go to consumercellular.com/radio25 and for a limited time, get $25 off when you use promo code radio25. That's consumercellular.com/radio25. Promo code radio25.
2023 is off to a turbulent start, and the U.S. broke through the $31.4 trillion debt ceiling in January with no slowing on spending. It's times like these that you want to have physical gold and silver on hand. You can buy it at bullionmax.com/coast. Go to bullionmax.com/coast and purchase your silver starter kit. Get 6 ounces of solid silver, including a limited vintage Aztec calendar coin, something Bullion Max and I set up for Coast to Coast listeners. bullionmax.com/coast. Before we go to the phones, Wayne, when I see these eggs, free-range chickens, it's labeled that way. Does it really mean anything? Am I people who buy those things thinking they're helping chickens? Are they?
I think so. George. Free range means that the animals are not in a cage, and these are legal definitions. There are, fairness in advertising rules. Now, some of this, verbiage like natural doesn't mean anything, and if you're talking about broiler birds, which are the meat birds, and they call them cage-free, that means nothing because those birds are not raised in cages to begin with. So that's just trying to take advantage of an increasingly popular notion of cage-free as applied to laying hens for eggs. Again, not for broiler birds. It doesn't mean it's perfect though, right? I mean, the problem in the egg industry is that all the male chicks get killed. Most of them get macerated immediately after birth. because there's no use to the industry. There are other, issues, but pasture-based companies like Vital Farms and others, I think, are doing an important service for these birds, and we actively support the movement, from the cages to cage-free settings, recognizing that it's not perfect, but it's an improvement. And my metric for animal welfare is progress, not perfection. We've got to be doing better, and much of that is incremental.
What about dairy? So, there are dairy products that are sold that are clearly trying to appeal to people who care about animals. Is there such a thing as cruelty-free dairy products?
Well, it's another great question, George. We have re-engineered the cows to suit our design, and there used to be the cows decades ago were producing 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 pounds of milk a year. Now the cows are producing as much as 27,000 pounds of milk, one cow per year. Now, again, lactation is something that comes, post pregnancy for the mother to provide nutrient-rich fluid for the calf. To produce 27,000 pounds, I mean, these cows have leg problems, they have foot problems, joint problems because they're so enormous. They also, half of them have mastitis, which is an inflammation of the udders, and they are taxed so much physiologically that many of them are slaughtered at 3, 4, 5, and 6 years of age, which is not that much longer a lifespan than these cattle have. So I think there are real issues that we need to think about with dairy. One of the things that we're really concerned about is our government. Our government mandates that every kid who's part of the National School Lunch Program gets a carton of cow's milk on his or her tray for lunch and for breakfast. 30 million kids participate in the lunch program. One problem, which is independent of the animal welfare concerns, is that more than half of those kids are probably lactose intolerant. The rates of lactose intolerance for African Americans is 75%. It's upwards of 85, 90% for Asian Americans. And other non-European groups also have startlingly high rates of lactose intolerance. This is an example of the government putting its thumb, on the scale to tip things in favor of one industry when you've got other options out there like soy milk and lots of other plant-based milks that don't bring that set of problems. Why should we be favoring this one commodity over others? So this is an issue of, again, the government, playing a really adverse role in tipping the scales in favor of an industry. It's crony capitalism at its worst.
You'd like to root for family farmers, dairy farmers, small farm operations, but wow, the stories you hear about
Like
the
ejaculation
being under
options,
the thumb of these giant agribusinesses
like
being
ejaculation
squeezed to
options.
death. It's a wonder that they even stay in business.
Well,
I guess
it was
most
just
of them
making
have.
like, well,
They're
what do
gone.
we need to
Well,
play?
the
If
number
we
of
need
these
fucking
family
co-op, we're
farms
going to fire
is
on your
really
fucking
declined.
island.
We used to have
Well, it's
700,000
your umbrella,
pig farmers in the mid-70s. Now we have about 60,000. 95% of the egg producers are gone. More than 90% of the dairy producers are gone. And, this consolidation around these industrial style facilities has made it tougher for these farmers. But those are the folks that are actually tending to animals to a degree. I mean, the term animal husbandry is kind of a notion of caring for the animal. It's husbandry. That is something that you want. You want to have a farmer actually farming. You don't just want a production facility where you've got 250,000 hens and you've got nobody in the place. My friend Matthew Scully wrote a book called Dominion. He was a speechwriter for he was a senior speechwriter for George W. Bush when he was president. And he said he went to a hog factory in North Carolina, and it was like, there were hogs, but there were no people. It's like there was an evacuation alert, a hurricane was coming, and no one was there. Very few people are tending to these animals. It's just production. And one of the terrible things is we genetically manipulated these animals for hyperproduction, for size, for fast growth. It stems, it produces all sorts of problems, just like for many of the dog breeds. When we inbreed them, they have genetic and hereditary proclivities for certain problems. Labrador retrievers genetic health of these animals, and we need to do better in this regard also.
Let's take some calls. First time caller Brad in Indiana. Hi, Brad. You're on with Wayne Pacelli. Welcome to Coast to Coast.
Hi, George. Thank you. Always enjoy your show. Don't mean to throw you a curveball here or anything like that, but I think it's always a good idea to have an honest discourse in regards to abuse towards animals, because I think it directly informs how we treat each other as human beings. But that said, I'm really curious if the several sexual harassment charges against Wayne Pacelli had anything to do with him stepping down last organization, the Humane Society, because it comes across as rather hypocritical that he's talking about stopping abuse towards animals when he has been accused of abusing several women that worked with him. I'd love to find out his response.
Okay, we've talked about it before on the program, but go ahead, Wayne.
Sure. Well, again, no abuse was alleged. There were, when I was at the Humane Society, I had a complaint of a woman or kissing her cheek in 2005, 13 years before I left, and salsa dancing with someone. I don't think that's abuse. I never accept the idea of harassment. The organizations that I work with today, we have anti-harassment policies, and I helped put those policies in place when I was at the Humane Society. I think that harassment is terrible. It's unacceptable. I can certainly deny the charges that I did any of that. The point is, I don't accept it on a go-forward basis. And what we're talking about with animal abuse is people who are accepting abuse on a go-forward basis. People who are cockfighting, people who are using gestation crates, people who are slaughtering horses. I'm not perfect. None of us is perfect. We're all sinners when it comes to animals. I think all of us can do better. I can do better. You can do better, callers. And I'm asking for everyone to do better. And when it comes to the treatment of any living being, we all should be doing better.
Wayne, I'll bet you get hit with that by these industries that when you call them on the carpet, when you point out what they're doing, that's when they'll drag that up again.
Oh, yeah, of course. And, like I said, George, I'm not perfect. I'm sure I've done a lot of things that were less than completely thoughtful in my life. I've always been under scrutiny as a leader in animal welfare. The industry groups have always attacked me. They attack me for this or that, whatever it might be. And, that just comes with the territory. I really try to make a rational argument that human beings are smart. We're creative. We're innovative. We can figure out ways to live our lives and not victimize animals. And in terms of, workplace issues, I'm all for the best workplace treatment of everybody. I always have been. If I've fallen short here or there, I regret it. And I have always committed to doing better in the future.
Wildcard Todd in Bellevue, Washington. Hi, Todd. You're on with Wayne Pacelli.
Thank you, George and Wayne. Now, I'd like to thank Mr. Larry Hama for creating the wolf for G.I. Joe's Snake Eyes character. I think he is one of the greatest wolves in literature, and I'd like to see more G.I. Joe animals.
Do you have a question for Wayne Pacelli about animal welfare issues? I'll tell you what, Todd, we're going to move on. Thanks for the call. Bye. We're going to Walt in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Hi, Walt.
Hi, Mr. Knapp. I feel like I'm an old friend of Mr. Pacelli. He used to visit Pennsylvania to protest the live pigeon shoots, and I wrote a quasi-newspaper column years ago, and I sort of got into it. I don't know whether he'd recall my name. My name is Walt Swerchek, and I don't know if he remembers the old days back in the 90s. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just like to say that, in this country we have a cultural aversion to eating. We had Mr. Ed on TV and Roy Rogers Trigger and My Friend Flickin'. So I think we have a natural aversion to eating horse meat. But I was telling Donna the greatest demand for horse meat is Japan, and I would like to ask Wayne whether he would rather the Japanese eat horse meat than whale meat, because they just recently, in the last few years, from what I understand, they quit whaling. They were doing it under the guise of research, which was a total farcical on their.
So yeah, I don't think they quit
Japanese are a problem on the whaling front. As you know, George, they didn't stop whaling. They used these explosive harpoons to kill the greatest animals in terms of physical mass that have ever lived on the planet. Many of them are endangered, and they're all remarkable. There's just no reason for it. The industrialized nations of the world have stopped. It's just 3 countries that continue to do this, and they shouldn't. Most young people in Japan have no interest in eating whales. Most people in Japan don't have an interest in eating horses either. And, we shouldn't have a circumstance where the types of a small set of people in 1 or 2 countries drive exploitation all over the world. That's exactly what's happening with whales and horses.
Yeah, I guess the answer would be you don't want them eating horse meat or whales in Japan or anywhere else. We're going to Brendan in Austin, Texas on the wildcard line. Hey, Brendan.
Thank you so much, George and Wayne. Great show. I'll try to be fast here. I know we're waiting on time here. So I tried to slide into the producer's DM sometime and send them some guest ideas. And Neil M. Pine from A Conscious Planet really did. And last February 15th, Dr. Defoe had the Food Toxin Show. They talked about the FDA, coal mining, and big pharma all colluding together. So I think this might be a little bit more organized, Wayne. And this is why ET doesn't contact us, all listeners. This is the reason. But our system is a system of exploitation, and capitalism has always been an exchange of oppression for money. And you mentioned in 1916 we started using animals. That's because we transitioned from immigrants and slave exploitation. And you're urging people to call the FDA just to ask permission to do the right thing. But we don't have an economic incentive to make them change their mind. And this is kind of calling the FDA, not that people shouldn't do that. I encourage everybody to do that. But it's kind of a band-aid because it doesn't address how we got to this point. The economic system that led to the animals and people being exploited, and that will just continue on to the planet.
I think you make a good point, Brendan. Yeah, you make a good point. We when I've had Wayne on the show before, the last time, in fact, we talked about some of the successes and how he has changed his organization, has helped change the economic incentives, that there is profit to be made in being kind to animals. Wayne, do you want to pick up on that and address what Brendan was asking about?
Yes, I think it's clear that, in capitalism you can get abuses. There has to be some restraint. But I argue in The Humane Economy, it's a pro-capitalist book, that really a key is an informed consumer base. That if we're conscious consumers, we can change the behavior of these companies. The companies don't want to get out of alignment with their customers. It's only things get out of alignment when consumers aren't paying attention. And if we're demanding that animals be treated humanely in the food system and in the pharmaceutical and drug development sector, in the fashion sector, and in other domains, then we can exert that kind of influence. I don't think that we're doomed as a nation because we have capitalism when it comes to animals. We can figure out a better way.
I mean, some of the victories in negotiating with these gigantic food companies, McDonald's, the fast food companies, where you negotiate with them and they pledge to buy humane eggs, buy products that include vegetarian options in their menus. Those are big victories.
But big victories, it's not enough, but it's a start, George. And I think for any of us involved in trying to make the world better for animals and better in general, you've got to celebrate gains and progress, and it shows the way. I mean, society looks very different now than it used to look. We have made progress in our society. We have more literacy. We have fewer hungry people. We have, women having the right to vote. We've got a lot of things that have happened in our society that have made the world better that all of us, whether we're Democrats, Independents, or Republicans, can agree upon. And kind treatment of animals who are sentient, who have feelings, who have a sense of past and future, who want to live their lives as much as we want to live ours, is a social good. And I just believe that we humans can figure safety testing and don't need to use primates and beagles any longer. So I really have an optimistic view of our human capacity for change.
Well, I hope you're right. I know these are emotional issues. People get fired up. There's a lot of pushback when you're asking people to change. There's always pushback every time we've had to hear. Comes with the territory. Wayne Pacelli, Animal Wellness Action. Thanks for being here. I hope to stay in touch.
George, thanks for everything. Appreciate you.
We'll talk to you again. We'll go into the break with Supertramp, and when we come back, Nick Redfern will join us.
Here we go again. Give a little bit. Give a little bit of your love to me. I'll give a little bit. I'll give a little bit of my love to you. There's so much that we need to share. So send a smile and show you care. I'll give a little bit. I'll give a little bit of my life for you. I'll give a little bit. I'll give a little bit of your time too. The man with the lonely eyes. Oh, take his hand. Surprise.
Hey, Crash, Big Cash. If you've been injured in an accident, call High Accident Lawyer today. One ring could be cut.
Black businesses are thriving. So are our schools, our votes, and our representation in city halls and state houses across the country. We are Black and thriving. Find the NAACP in your community and support the work that keeps our entrepreneurs, our students, and our culture moving forward. This Black History Month, thrive with us by donating to the NAACP. Text donate to 20707 to honor Black history and support Black futures.
Portions of the following program will be recorded. A recent survey came up with the 100 worst airports on the planet, and we're at number 2 as one of the worst. It's just insane. I mean, you look at airports all over the world, Bill handle. They're all better than LAX, which is a disaster.
Live 6 to 9 a.m. on KFI and on demand anytime on the iHeartRadio app.
Forget about civil rights.
Forget about that gay people should have the same rights as the rest of us.
How about, what do you care? What, the couple next door to you is gay? Oh, that's horrible. They're great dressers.
Scandal.
No, I would be intimidated because they would always look better than me.
Of course.
Live 6 to 9 a.m. on KFI and on demand anytime on the iHeartRadio app.
Where you go to get Pedialyte, you can't buy Tito's vodka, a 12-pack of beer, and Pedialyte.
Right, because the guy knows that you're just a rager, man. You're out of control.
So you gotta buy binkies and diapers.
The Tim Conway Jr. show.
And then you gotta slide in the Pedialyte.
Live 4 to 7 p.m. on KFI and on demand anytime on the iHeartRadio app. Do you think we've got all the answers? Well, we've got news. No, seriously, we've got news right now.
KFI.
Los Angeles, Orange County. Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
Drenched and powerless, I'm Mark Bronner from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. Tens of thousands of people have been without power thanks to the massive winter storm that rolled through Southern California. ABC's Doreen Shaw says the storm dumped more than 10 inches of rain on Woodland Hills, with 5 or more inches of rainfall in several areas.
At higher elevations, Californians see heavy snow, forcing roads across the state to close. But down below, intense downpours causing flash flooding. In Valencia, several motorhomes and trees falling into the Santa Clara River after an embankment in a local RV park began crumbling and collapsing.
The storm moved out today, but we have more rain tonight through Wednesday. Almost 4 feet of snow has fallen in Big Bear, which has stranded some people visiting the mountain town. But that's not a problem for some at Big Bear Mountain Resort.
Well, people work remotely today, so I said, you know what? If we stay here another week, we'll just get the best Airbnb or vacation
judge in LA has sentenced the man who gunned down rapper Nipsey Hussle.
The Superior Court judge handed down a 60-year